The red dust of Kepler 442b swirled around the small settlement as another harsh wind swept across the mining colony. Jake Morrison stood at the window of the temporary peace building, watching the two alien groups prepare for what everyone hoped would be the final negotiation. His brown eyes showed the weight of 3 weeks trying to keep these species from killing each other. The Zephyrians looked like giant insects, with their hard shells and multiple arms. They moved in quick, jerky motions that made humans nervous. Their leader, Sub-Commander Kexaval, had been reasonable so far. The blue-skinned Aquari were different, smooth and wet-looking like large frogs that walked on 2 legs. Their diplomat Flowsinger Merata spoke in a voice that sounded like water flowing over rocks. "Commander Morrison, both sides are ready," said Lieutenant Amy Foster as she walked up behind him. She was young for a peacekeeper, only 26, but she had a good mind for reading alien body language. Her blonde hair was tied back in the standard military style. "Any last-minute problems?" Jake asked, turning away from the window. At 34, he had been keeping peace between alien species for 5 years. He had seen what happened when talks failed. "Sergeant Rivera says the Zephyrian guards seem more nervous than usual," Amy reported. "He thinks some of them might not want this peace deal to work." Carlos Rivera had good instincts about these things. The big sergeant from Texas had fought in the border wars before joining the Peacekeepers. If he was worried, Jake should listen. "Tell Carlos to keep his eyes open," Jake said. "But don't do anything that might make either side think we favor the other." The peace building was simple, just a large room with a round table and chairs that could fit different alien body types. Earth had learned that round tables worked better than square ones. Nobody could sit at the head of a round table. Jake walked into the meeting room where both alien groups were already seated. The Zephyrians sat on one side, their insect eyes constantly moving. The Aquari sat across from them, their skin changing, color slightly with their emotions, right now showing nervous purple spots. "Friends," Jake began, using the word both species understood. "We have been talking for 3 weeks. Both your peoples want the same thing: to mine the valuable crystals under this world's surface. Today we will decide how to share this world in peace." Sub-Commander Kexaval's translator device made clicking sounds before speaking in standard Galactic language. "The crystals in Sector 7 belong to the collective by right of first discovery." Flowsinger Merata's neck sack puffed up with anger. "Our people found the crystals 3 days before your ships arrived. We have proof." Jake had heard this argument many times. "The Galactic Council has reviewed both claims. They suggest dividing the mining rights equally. Each species gets half of Sector 7. "Unacceptable," clicked Kexaval. "The collective needs those crystals for our new colony ships." "As do we," gurgled Merata. "Our people are dying in the old systems," Jake felt, the tension in the room growing thicker. Amy sat at a small table nearby, ready to record any agreement. Through the window, he could see Carlos standing guard outside with 2 other human peacekeepers. "Perhaps we can discuss compensation," Jake suggested. "If one group takes more mining rights, they could pay the other group in trade goods or technology." Both aliens began talking at once, their translators creating a mess of sounds. Jake raised his hand for quiet. That was when the first explosion shook the building. The front wall blew inward with a shower of metal and concrete. Through the smoke and dust, shapes moved fast. Zephyrian soldiers in black combat armor rushed into the room, their weapons already firing. Jake threw himself sideways as blue energy bolts flew past his head. One bolt hit Flowsinger Merata in the chest, and she fell backward with a wet scream. The other Aquari delegates tried to run, but more soldiers blocked the back exit. "Amy, get down!" Jake shouted as he rolled behind an overturned table. He could hear her crying out somewhere in the chaos. Sub-Commander Kexval was also shouting, but at his own soldiers. "Stop this! I did not order this attack!" The black-armored Zephyrians did not listen to him, their leader wearing different markings than regular collective troops, pointed at the human peacekeepers. "Kill the humans first," the leader clicked in accented galactic language. "They corrupt our negotiations with their soft words." Jake reached for his sidearm, but he knew it would not help much against military-grade weapons. Peacekeepers carried light arms because they were supposed to keep peace, not fight wars. 2 Aquari delegates were already dead. The others huddled behind chairs that offered little protection. Sub-Commander Kexaval tried to reach his own weapon, but one of the attackers shot him in the arm. "This is Commander Morrison to all Earth forces," Jake spoke into his emergency communicator. "We are under attack at the Peace Building. Multiple casualties. Send immediate help." The static that came back told him the attackers had jammed their communications. Jake saw Amy crouched behind a fallen beam, blood running down her face from a cut. She was trying to help a wounded Aquari delegate. Even under fire, she was doing her job as a peacekeeper. The attacking Zephyrians spread out through the room, checking bodies and making sure no one could escape. Their leader walked toward Jake's hiding spot. "Weapon ready." "Human peacekeeper," the leader clicked. "Your species should not interfere in collective business. This world belongs to us." Jake stood up slowly, hands visible. "I am Commander Jake Morrison of the Terran Peacekeeping Corps. You are in violation of Galactic Council law. End this attack, and we can talk." The Zephyrian leader tilted his insect head. "There will be no more talking. No more human peacekeepers telling us how to live." The leader raised his weapon. Jake knew he was about to die, but he also knew what he had to do. 3 Aquari delegates were still alive behind him. If he could draw the attackers' attention, maybe Amy could get them to safety. Jake jumped forward toward the Zephyrian leader. Energy bolts hit him in the chest and shoulder, spinning him around. He felt his strength leaving as he fell to the dusty floor. "Amy," he gasped into his communicator with his last breath. "Tell Earth we tried." The room fell silent except for the quiet sobbing of the survivors. Amy crawled over to Jake's body, checking for any sign of life. There was none. The Zephyrian leader stepped over Jake's body and looked at Amy. "You will tell your people what happens to those who interfere with the collective." Outside, Carlos and the other peacekeepers lay dead in the red dust. The peace that Jake Morrison had tried to build on Kepler 442b died with him. But his death would start something much bigger than anyone in that room could imagine. The emergency signal reached Earth 13 hours after Jake Morrison died. The quantum communication array in Geneva received Amy Foster's broken transmission first. Her voice shook as she reported the attack to the Emergency Response Center. "Commander, Morrison is dead," Amy said through the static. "Carlos Rivera dead. Matt Johnson dead. The extremists killed everyone they could find. They made me watch." President Lisa Carter was pulled out of a meeting with the European Union when the report reached her desk. She read it twice, then walked to her window overlooking Washington, D.C. Her reflection in the glass showed a woman who had aged 5 years and 5 minutes. "Get me the Terran Defense Council," she told her assistant. "Full emergency assembly, now." Within 2 hours, The most powerful people on Earth sat around a secure table deep under the White House. Admiral Ryan Blake, head of Earth's military forces, had flown in from Luna Base. General Chris Parker came from the secret facilities in Colorado. Director Helen Cross represented Earth intelligence. "Show me everything," President Carter said. Admiral Blake activated the holographic display. The attack played out in 3 dimensions above the table. Security cameras had recorded most of what happened in the Peace Building on Kepler 442b. They watched Jake Morrison try to save the alien delegates. They watched him take the energy bolts meant for others. They watched him die trying to protect beings from worlds he had never seen, until 5 years ago. "How many people know about this?" the president asked. The attack was broadcast live on 17 different galactic news networks, Director Cross reported. "The extremists wanted everyone to see what they did to our people." "What is the official galactic response?" "The Galactic Council called an emergency session," Admiral Blake said. "They plan to issue a formal condemnation and demand reparations from the Zephyrian Collective." President Carter laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Reparations? They think money will bring back Jake Morrison." "The Council expects us to follow standard diplomatic procedures," Director Cross explained. "File protests, accept compensation, maybe recall our peacekeepers for a few months." "What does the Zephyrian government say?" "Queen Zexkala claims the attackers were extremists acting without orders," Admiral Blake replied. "She refuses to hand them over, saying they acted in self-defense." President Carter stood up and walked around the table. She had known Jake Morrison personally. He had briefed her before every major peacekeeping mission. He had 2 kids and a wife back in Ohio. Now they would never see him come home. "What are our military options?" she asked. General Parker leaned forward. "We have 3 choices. Option 1, diplomatic protest and sanctions. Option 2, limited military response against the extremist group. Option 3, full military engagement." "Explain Option 3. "Full deployment of the Terran Defense Fleet," Parker said. "Complete elimination of the threat to our peacekeepers. Send a message that attacking Earth citizens has consequences." Admiral Blake looked uncomfortable. "Madam President, that would mean revealing our true military capabilities. We have been hiding our strength for good reasons. For 5 years, Earth had pretended to be a small, peaceful species just learning to work with aliens. The galaxy saw humans as useful mediators, but not a military threat. They had no idea what Earth had really been building. "Show her Project Omega," President Carter told General Parker. Parker hesitated, then activated a new set of displays. Ships appeared that no alien had ever seen. Massive dreadnoughts with weapons that could crack planets. Fleets of destroyers that could outrun anything in space. Ground forces with equipment that made galactic militaries look like children with toys. "We have been preparing for this day since we joined the galactic community," Parker explained. "We hoped it would never come." "How long to mobilize?" 72 hours for full deployment, Admiral Blake said. "But Madam President, this will change everything. Once we show our true strength, we can never go back to being seen as the peaceful newcomers." President Carter thought about Jake Morrison's children. She thought about Amy Foster, still trapped on that distant world, traumatized and alone. She thought about every human peacekeeper serving on alien worlds, now knowing that their deaths might be acceptable losses to species that had never valued human life. "Get me a direct line to the Galactic Council," she ordered. 20 minutes. Later, President Carter's face appeared on communication screens across the galaxy. Council Chairman Veltar of the Ethereal Collective expected to hear the usual human response to violence: sadness, request for justice, and acceptance of whatever the Council decided. Instead, they heard something that chilled every alien leader. Watching. "Citizens of the galaxy," President Carter began. 5 years ago, Earth joined your community in peace. We offered our people as neutral mediators in your conflicts. We asked only that you respect the lives of those who served. Her voice grew harder. Yesterday, extremists murdered Commander Jake Morrison and his team on Kepler 442b. They killed our people not for any crime, but because humans dared to suggest that different species could share a world in peace. The council chamber fell silent. Even the usually chattering Nexus Confederation stopped their electronic buzzing. The Zephyrian Collective refuses to hand over the killers. The Galactic Council offers us reparations and empty condemnations. You expect us to accept this because humans are new to your galaxy. President Carter leaned closer to the camera. You are wrong about us. We did not come to your galaxy as weaklings begging for acceptance. We came as a species that had already conquered death, disease, and poverty on our own world. We came as a people who had learned to turn the power of stars into weapons. Admiral Blake stood behind her, his uniform showing decorations from wars the galaxy knew nothing about. Effective immediately, Earth is recalling every human diplomat, peacekeeper, and civilian from every non-Earth world. We are terminating all peace treaties and trade agreements until our citizens' safety can be guaranteed. The implications hit the galactic leaders like a physical blow. Human peacekeepers were keeping dozens of conflicts from exploding into full wars. Human trade routes carried goods that some worlds depended on for survival. To the Zephyrian Collective, we offer one final chance, President Carter continued. Hand over Commander Morrison's killers within 72 hours, or face the consequences. To the galaxy, we offer this lesson. Humans are peaceful by choice, not by weakness. We chose to keep your peace because we believed it was right. You have shown us the value you place on human lives. President Carter stood up. Now you will learn the value we place on them. The transmission ended. In the silence that followed, Admiral Blake began issuing orders to fleet commanders across the solar system. Ships that had hidden in asteroid fields and behind moons began moving toward jump points. General Parker activated secure channels to military bases the galaxy had never detected. Weapon systems came online that used technologies aliens had never seen. President Carter walked back to her window. In 72 hours, every alien in the galaxy would know exactly what humanity was capable of when someone killed their peacekeepers. Jake Morrison's death would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Outside her window, the first of Earth's hidden war fleet rose into the night sky, heading for the stars. The Galactic Council chamber had not seen this much activity in 50 years. Representatives from over 200 species filled the massive space station orbiting Nexus Prime. Everyone wanted to discuss Earth's shocking response to the Kepler 442b incident. Council. Chairman Veltar floated in his crystalline containment suit, his ethereal form shifting between colors as he spoke. The Ethereal Collective had ruled galactic politics for over 1,000 years. They had seen many young species make threats they could not keep. The humans are having an emotional reaction, Veltar announced to the assembled delegates. This is normal for primitive species when they experience loss. They will calm down once they realize the consequences of defying galactic law. War Prince. Thaler of the Draconian Empire stood on his raised platform, his scales gleaming red in the chamber's light. The dragons had the strongest military in the galaxy and did not like threats from anyone. "The humans forget their place," Thaler growled. "They are a single-world species with no significant military power. If they want to play at war, we will remind them why the Empire has ruled for 3,000 years. Queen Zexkala of the Zephyrian. Collective watched the discussion through her remote link from Zephyr Prime. Her compound eyes showed no emotion as the other species debated humanity's ultimatum. "The extremists who killed the human peacekeepers acted without official orders," she stated. "But they were defending collective interests against foreign interference. I will not hand over warriors who fought for their people." Senator Fluxara, of the Nexus Confederation, processed the situation through 17 different computer models before speaking. The cybernetic collective usually stayed neutral in political matters. Analysis suggests human military capabilities are limited to their home system, Fluxara announced in their electronic voice. Their threats cannot be logically maintained against superior galactic forces. High Mediator Corven of the Saurian Union remained silent during the debate. His reptilian people had been oppressed by the major powers for centuries. Unlike the others, he had actually read human military history files. What he saw there worried him. The debate continued for hours. Most speakers agreed that humanity was bluffing. Earth had been in the galactic community for only 5 years. Their ships were small and seemed designed for exploration, not war. Their peacekeepers carried light weapons and avoided violence whenever possible. "We have all seen human behavior," declared Ambassador Trilek of the Aquari Republic. "They are mediators, not warriors. They spend more time talking than fighting." What none of the galactic leaders knew was that several human intelligence agents had been monitoring their communications for months. Director Helen Cross read the translated reports from her office on Luna Base. "They think we are weak," she told Admiral Blake over secure communication. "Every major species believes we are bluffing." "Good," Admiral Blake replied from his flagship, the EFS Retribution. "Let them think that for another 24 hours. The Retribution was one of Earth's hidden dreadnoughts, a ship class that the galaxy had never seen. At 3 kilometers long, it carried enough firepower to level a small moon. Captain Peter Hayes commanded the vessel from a bridge that looked more like a computer center than a traditional ship control room. "All systems ready, Admiral," Captain Hayes reported. "The fleet is in position behind Neptune. We can reach the jump point in 6 hours." Admiral Blake looked at the tactical display showing Earth's true military strength. 47 major warships, 300 smaller vessels, and enough ground forces to conquer a dozen worlds. All of it hidden from galactic sensors by technology that humanity had developed in secret. "Any word from the diplomatic channels?" Blake asked. "The Zephyrian Queen sent a formal response an hour ago," Director Cross reported. "She refuses to hand over the extremists. She claims they are heroes defending their people from human interference." On Zephyr Prime, Queen Zexkala met with her military commanders in the Royal Hive. The massive insect queen towered over her subordinates as they discussed the human ultimatum. "What do our intelligence reports say about human military capabilities?" she asked. General Hexmore, her top military advisor, clicked his mandibles, dismissively. "Their largest ships are exploration vessels. Their weapons are designed for asteroid mining. They have no significant ground forces outside their home system. What about their threat to use force?" "Empty words, Your Majesty. Humans are traitors and diplomats. They have never fought a real war since joining the galactic community." Queen Zexkala agreed with this assessment. She had seen human peacekeepers in action. They always tried to talk their way out of conflicts. Even when attacked, they used minimal force and tried to protect everyone, including their enemies. The extremists will remain under royal protection, she decided. If the humans want to file more diplomatic protests, let them. Back on the Galactic Council station, the debate was reaching its conclusion. Most representatives agreed that humanity's threats were empty posturing from a grieving species. We should send a message of sympathy, suggested Ambassador Marek, of the Ursine clans. But we must make it clear that galactic law cannot be changed because one species becomes emotional. Chairman Veltar prepared the official galactic response. It would express regret for the loss of human life while explaining that the Zephyrian collective had handled the matter according to their laws. The humans would be offered increased compensation and a formal apology. This will calm their primitive emotions, Veltar stated. Once they realize they cannot challenge the established order, they will return to their proper role as neutral mediators. What the galactic leaders did not know was that Earth's intelligence network had been monitoring their communications for years. Every private conversation, every military assessment, every diplomatic strategy had been recorded and analyzed. Colonel Maria Santos read the intelligence reports from her command center in the hidden military complex under Antarctica. The aliens had no idea what they were about to face. They think our largest ships are exploration vessels, she told General Parker. They have never detected our military shipyards or weapons research facilities. Let them keep thinking that, Parker replied. In 18 hours, they will learn the difference between human peacekeepers and human warriors. The final galactic response came 6 hours before Earth's deadline expired. Chairman Veltar personally delivered the message that offered sympathy, compensation, and completely ignored the demand to hand over Morrison's killers. President Carter read the response in her Situation Room surrounded by Earth's military leaders. The galactic community had made their choice. They valued political stability over human lives. Admiral Blake, you have authorization for Operation Righteous Fury, she said calmly. Understood, Madam President. Fleet is moving to jump position now. Across the galaxy, alien leaders went to sleep thinking they had successfully called humanity's bluff. The Zephyrian Queen celebrated with her generals. The Galactic Council scheduled routine business for the next day. None of them knew that 47 human warships were already moving through hyperspace toward Zephyr Prime. The galaxy was about to learn that humans had not been building exploration ships for the past 5 years. They had been building a war fleet, and Jake Morrison's killers were about to discover what happened when you murdered a human peacekeeper. Space around Zephyr Prime had been peaceful for over a century. The blue-green world hung quietly in its orbit, surrounded by 3 moons and a network of defense stations that had never fired their weapons in anger. Mining platforms and trade. Stations dotted the system, processing the valuable crystals that made the Zephyrian collective wealthy. That peace ended at exactly 0800 Galactic Standard Time. Admiral Ryan Blake stood on the bridge of the EFS Retribution as the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace. 47 warships appeared in perfect formation, their weapons already trained on Zephyrian targets. The aliens had never seen ships like these. All targets identified and locked, reported Captain Peter Hayes from his tactical station. Enemy forces are completely unprepared. The Zephyrian defense fleet consisted of 38 vessels, designed more for patrol duty than real combat. Their commanders had been drinking fermented nectar and planning mining operations when the humans arrived. Now they scrambled to understand what they were seeing. Unknown vessels. "This is Defense Commander Tick Vol of the Zephyrian Home Fleet," came the transmission. "You are entering collective space without permission. Identify yourselves immediately." Admiral Blake activated the fleet communication system. His voice would be heard on every ship, station, and planet in the system. "This is Admiral Ryan Blake of the Terran Defense Fleet. 72 hours ago, your people murdered Commander Jake Morrison and his peacekeeping team. Your government has refused to surrender the killers. We have come to collect them." The silence that followed lasted exactly 10 seconds. Then the Zephyrian Defense Fleet tried to fight back. It was not much of a fight. Captain Linda Torres led the first wave of human fighters from the carrier EFS Nemesis. Her squadron of 30 attack craft moved like hunting birds, striking fast, and disappearing before the enemy could respond. Zephyrian fighters were built for show and patrol work. Human fighters were built to kill. "Target their command ship first," Torres ordered her pilots. "Take out their coordination and the rest will be easy." The Zephyrian command vessel, a grand ship covered in decorative crystals, exploded under concentrated fire from 6 human fighters. The pretty crystals made beautiful sparkles as they scattered through space. On the surface of Zephyr Prime, Queen Zexkala watched in horror as her home fleet died. The humans destroyed ships faster than her military advisors could count the losses. In 15 minutes, 38 Zephyrian vessels became expanding clouds of debris. "How is this possible?" she demanded. "Our intelligence said they had no military ships." General Hexmore stared at the tactical display showing human vessels that outgunned anything in the collective arsenal. "Your Majesty, these ships, they are using technology we have never seen. Their weapons are more advanced than anything the Draconian Empire possesses." Admiral Blake watched the destruction with satisfaction but no pleasure. Every burning Zephyrian ship brought justice for Jake Morrison, but it also meant the end of Earth's peaceful approach to galactic politics. "Phase 1 complete," he announced to the fleet. "Begin Phase 2. Target all orbital installations." The Zephyrians had built beautiful space stations around their homeworld, luxury hotels for wealthy tourists, research facilities studying crystal formations, and defensive platforms that had never expected to face a real attack. The humans destroyed them all with methodical precision. Major Alex Thompson led the Marine. Assault on Station Kexara, the largest orbital platform. His troops moved through the corridors in powered armor that made them look like metal giants. Zephyrian security forces fired their weapons at the humans with no effect. "Secure all civilian areas," Thompson ordered his Marines. "We are here for the extremists, not innocent people." Even in war, the humans followed rules. They protected civilians and treated prisoners well. This confused the Zephyrians, who expected conquerors to be cruel and destructive. The siege of Zephyr Prime lasted exactly 6 hours. When it ended, every military installation in the system was destroyed or captured. The beautiful crystal cities on the planet's surface remained untouched, but the orbital defenses that had protected them for centuries were gone. Queen Zexkala received a direct communication from Admiral Blake as the human fleet took control of her system. "Your Majesty, you have 1 hour to surrender the extremists who killed Commander Morrison. If you refuse, we will begin orbital bombardment of military targets on the planet's surface." The Zephyrian Queen looked around her throne room at the terrified faces of her advisors. Through the crystal windows, she could see human ships hanging in the sky like metal vultures. "Where are the extremists now?" she asked. "Hidden in the underground bunkers beneath the old capital," General Hexmore reported. "They think the humans cannot reach them there." Queen Zexkala had ruled the collective for 40 years. She had seen other species challenge galactic powers and lose everything. but she had never seen anything like the cold efficiency of the human attack. "How many civilians will die if we resist?" she asked. "The humans have been very careful to avoid civilian casualties so far," her intelligence chief reported. "But if we force them to attack the planet..." The Queen made her decision. She had started this crisis by protecting extremists who murdered peacekeepers. She would not let her people pay the price for that mistake. "Send word to the bunkers," she ordered. "The extremists will surrender themselves to human custody within the hour, or I will order royal guards to drag them out personally." The response came quickly. The extremist leader, calling himself Warclaw Zekmor, refused to surrender. He claimed he was a hero defending collective honor against alien interference. Queen Zexkala sent her elite guards to the bunkers with orders to bring back the extremists, alive or dead. They returned in 30 minutes with 12 bound prisoners. Admiral Blake received the prisoners on the captured space station that had served as the system's military headquarters. Warclaw Zekmor and his followers were loaded into human custody, without ceremony. "These are the killers?" Blake asked Major Thompson. "Confirmed, sir. DNA evidence and security recordings place them at the attack site." Blake looked at the Zephyrian extremists with cold eyes. They had murdered good people and started a war. Now they would face human justice. "Admiral Blake," came a transmission from Captain Kevin Brown on the EFS Terra's Wrath. "We are receiving emergency communications from across the galaxy. Every major government wants to know what happened here." Blake smiled grimly. The galaxy had ignored Earth's diplomatic requests and dismissed their ultimatum. Now they were learning what happened when humans stopped asking politely. "Tell them we got what we came for," Blake replied. "Commander Morrison's killers are in custody." "What about the Zephyrian fleet and defense network?" "Military assets that threatened human peacekeepers have been eliminated. The system is now under human control until we are satisfied that our people will be safe." The news of Earth's victory reached every corner of the galaxy within hours. A human fleet had destroyed the Zephyrian home defense forces in 6 hours. They had captured the system with minimal losses and surgical precision. The galactic community suddenly realized they had seriously misjudged humanity's military capabilities. War Prince Thaler of the Draconian Empire called an emergency meeting of his generals. "How did we not know they had ships like this?" Chairman Veltar of the Ethereal. "Collective reviewed intelligence reports that now seemed completely wrong. The humans have been hiding their true strength for years." But the most worried leaders were those who had human peacekeepers stationed in their territories. If Earth was willing to wage war over one dead peacekeeper, what would they do if more humans were threatened? Admiral Blake established a permanent human presence in the Zephyr system with the captured orbital stations as bases. The message was clear: attack human peacekeepers, and Earth would come for you. The siege of Zephyr Prime was over, but the galaxy was just beginning to understand what they had awakened. The aftermath of Zephyr Prime sent shockwaves through every corner of the galaxy. Within 24 hours, emergency sessions were called on dozens of worlds as governments tried to understand what humanity had become. But Earth was not finished sending messages. President Lisa Carter stood in the rebuilt United Nations Assembly Hall, now serving as the center of humanity's galactic government. Behind her, holographic displays showed the locations of every human peacekeeper, diplomat, and civilian throughout known space. Red markers indicated those who had been threatened or attacked since the Zephyr operation. "Citizens of Earth and beings of the galaxy," she began, her voice carrying to every inhabited world through quantum communication networks. 72 hours ago, we promised consequences for the murder of Commander Jake Morrison. We have delivered on that promise. The camera showed images from Zephyr Prime, burned Zephyrian warships, captured orbital stations, and human marines standing guard over strategic installations. But Commander Morrison's death was not an isolated incident. It was part of a pattern of violence against humans who serve the cause of peace. Today, we address that pattern. General Chris Parker stepped forward, his uniform displaying decorations from conflicts the galaxy had never heard of. Behind him, new holographic displays revealed the true scope of Earth's military preparations. For 5 years, while our peacekeepers kept your wars from spreading, Earth has been preparing for this moment. We hoped it would never come. We prepared because we knew it might. The display showed massive shipyards hidden in asteroid fields, weapons research facilities buried in moons, and training centers where human soldiers learned to fight in alien environments. The galaxy had been watching a peaceful facade while Earth built a war machine. Today, we are implementing Protocol Omega, President Carter announced. Any attack on human peacekeepers, diplomats, or civilians will result in immediate and overwhelming military response. Any government that harbors those who harm our people will face the consequences. War Prince Thalar of the Draconian Empire watched the broadcast from his throne room on Draco Prime. His advisors had been analyzing the Zephyr Prime battle for hours, trying to understand how humans had developed such advanced technology in secret. "How many ships do they have?" he demanded. "Intelligence estimates between 300 and 500 major vessels," his fleet commander reported. "But these are estimates. They may have hidden even more than we think." "Impossible. We would have detected construction of that size." "Your Majesty, they built everything in deep space, far from normal shipping routes. Our scouts never found their facilities because we were not looking for them." Chairman Veltar of the Ethereal Collective processed the human announcement through probability matrices that should have predicted this outcome. Every calculation had been wrong. The humans had been planning for war while speaking of peace. "Recall all our survey fleets from human-controlled space," he ordered his subordinates. "Until we understand their full capabilities, we must assume they can strike anywhere." On Earth, Admiral Blake coordinated the deployment of additional fleets to key systems throughout the galaxy. The Zephyr operation had been a demonstration. Now came the real work of enforcing Earth's new doctrine. "Status report on the Kepler system," he requested from his command center on Luna Base. Commander Rachel Smith transmitted from the destroyer EFS Vigilant as it patrolled the system where Jake Morrison had died. "All Zephyrian colonial vessels have been located and intercepted. We are conducting searches for extremist supporters." Any resistance? Minimal. Most colonial administrators are cooperating fully. They seem more afraid of us than loyal to their government. Captain Daniel Clark led a hunter group through the outer system, tracking down Zephyrian ships that had tried to flee when the humans arrived. His squadron of fast attack craft found them hiding in an asteroid field. Zephyrian vessels. This is Captain Clark of the Terran Navy. You are in violation of the Kepler system exclusion zone. Surrender immediately or be destroyed." The response came in panicked clicking sounds through the translators. "We surrender! Please do not fire! We are only miners!" Clark's ships escorted the captured vessels to the processing station that humans had established on Morrison's Landing, named for the dead Peacekeeper. Every Zephyrian in the system would be questioned and processed before being allowed to leave. The speed and efficiency of human operations surprised even their allies. Ambassador. Steve Mitchell worked with representatives from species that had secretly welcomed Earth's show of strength. The Saurian Union is prepared to sign a mutual defense treaty, Mitchell reported to President Carter. They have been waiting years for someone to challenge the established powers. What about the Ursine clans? They want protection from draconian expansion. In exchange, they offer basing rights and intelligence cooperation. These smaller species had watched the major galactic powers dominate interstellar politics for centuries. Earth's demonstration of military strength offered them a chance to align with a new power that seemed more interested in justice than conquest. But the major powers were not ready to accept a shift in galactic balance. War Prince Thaler called for an emergency meeting of the Military Alliance, a group that included the Draconian Empire, Nexus Confederation, and Assembly of Minds. They met in virtual conference to discuss the human threat. Earth must be contained before they destabilize the entire galaxy, Thaler declared. Their attack on Zephyr Prime violates every treaty governing interspecies relations. Senator Fluxara of the Nexus Confederation processed tactical data before responding. Analysis indicates human military technology exceeds our previous estimates by significant margins. Direct confrontation may result in unacceptable losses. Are you suggesting we surrender galactic leadership to a species that has been civilized for less than 50,000 years? Thaler's scales flushed red with anger. I am suggesting we calculate the cost of resistance before committing to action. The Assembly of Minds, a collective of cybernetic beings, ran simulation after simulation, trying to predict the outcome of war with Earth. Every model showed massive casualties and uncertain results. Meanwhile, Earth continued implementing Protocol Omega with ruthless efficiency. Any group that had previously threatened humans found themselves facing immediate military action. The pirate fleet that had attacked human trade ships near Rigel disappeared overnight when Captain Kevin Brown's task force arrived. Space pirates, who had operated for decades, were eliminated in a single engagement. Terrorist groups that had targeted human diplomatic facilities on several worlds woke up to find human special forces surrounding their hideouts. Major Alex Thompson's Marines extracted human hostages and captured terrorist leaders with surgical precision. The galaxy is learning that humans have long memories, President Carter explained to her cabinet. Every threat, every attack, every insult to our people has been recorded. Now, we are collecting payment. The economic impact of Earth's actions rippled through galactic trade networks. Human merchants and trading companies controlled more interstellar commerce than most governments had realized. When Earth recalled its civilians and suspended trade agreements, dozens of worlds found themselves facing supply shortages. They were integrated into our economy more deeply than we knew, reported the Aquari Trade Minister to Flo Singer Merada. Without human shipping routes, we cannot maintain industrial production. Similar reports came from across the galaxy. The peaceful humans who had seemed like minor players in galactic politics turned out to control critical infrastructure and supply chains. General Parker reviewed intelligence reports showing the growing panic among alien governments. How many species have requested direct communication with Earth? 47 so far, Director Cross reported. Most want to negotiate new agreements that guarantee their human populations will not be withdrawn. What about military responses? The Draconian Empire is mobilizing their fleets, but they are moving slowly. The other major powers seem to be waiting to see what Earth does next. President Carter smiled grimly as she reviewed the reports. The galaxy had ignored human diplomacy and dismissed human threats. Now they were scrambling to understand the new reality where Earth held the military advantage. Schedule a second broadcast for tomorrow, she ordered. The galaxy needs to understand that this is not a temporary crisis. This is the new permanent order. The age of human peacekeepers asking politely for cooperation was over. The age of human enforcers demanding compliance had begun, and the galaxy was about to learn that humans were much better at war than they had ever been at peace. The emergency session of the Galactic Military Council took place in the secured chambers beneath Draco Prime's capital city. War Prince Thalar paced around the circular table, where holographic representations of the galaxy's most powerful military leaders had gathered. The human threat has reached critical levels, Thalar announced, his scales shifting to deep crimson. Their unprovoked attack on Zephyr Prime represents a challenge to the established galactic order that we cannot ignore. General Kixandra of the Crystalline Nexus Confederation flickered between her various data forms as she processed tactical information. Human fleet strength appears to exceed all previous estimates. Their technology demonstrates advances we did not detect during their integration period. Supreme Coordinator Prime 7 of the Assembly of Minds spoke through multiple electronic voices simultaneously. Probability calculations indicate 73.4% chance of continued human expansion if current trajectory maintains. Containment protocols must be implemented. Around the galaxy, the major powers were discovering that their assumptions about humanity had been catastrophically wrong. Earth had not been the weak newcomer seeking protection and guidance. They had been a sleeping predator learning about their potential prey. Admiral Vorthak of the Ethereal Collective reviewed intelligence reports that painted an increasingly disturbing picture. Human ship construction has been ongoing for at least 7 years, using facilities we never detected. Their weapons technology incorporates principles our science cannot fully explain. How is that possible? Demanded War Prince Thalar. We have monitored their development since first contact. They showed us what they wanted us to see, Vorthak replied. While their diplomats spoke of peace and cooperation, their engineers were building a war fleet in deep space. The truth was becoming clear to the galactic powers. Humanity had played a decades-long deception, presenting themselves as harmless mediators while secretly preparing for the day when diplomacy would fail. But not everyone in the galaxy opposed Earth's rise to power. On the jungle world of Saurus, Prime High Mediator Corven met secretly with human ambassador Steve Mitchell in a location shielded from surveillance. The reptilian leader had been watching galactic politics for over a century. My people have suffered under draconian dominance for 300 years, Corven explained. They demand tribute, station their fleets in our systems, and treat us as vassals rather than equals. Mitchell nodded, understanding. Earth believes that all sentient species deserve self-determination. We did not reveal our military strength to become new overlords, but to ensure that bullies cannot murder our peacekeepers with impunity. What guarantees can you offer that humans will not become the same tyrants in different form? Our actions speak for us, Mitchell replied. We could have destroyed Zephyr Prime completely, but we protected civilians and limited our targets to military installations. We seek justice, not conquest. Similar secret negotiations were taking place across the galaxy. Species that had been oppressed or marginalized by the traditional powers saw Earth's military demonstration as an opportunity for change. The massive Ursine clans had been forced to cede territory to draconian expansion for decades. Clan Mother Ursa Kane met with human representatives on the border world of Kodiak's Edge. Your species fights like we do, she told Colonel Sandra West, Earth's military attaché. Quick, decisive, protective of the innocent. The dragons fight for glory and dominance. You fight for your pack. Will the clans stand with Earth? West asked. If humans promise to respect our traditional territories and help us reclaim what the dragons have stolen, the Ursine will fight beside you. The smaller aquatic civilizations of the reef worlds had watched their ocean planets become dumping grounds for industrial waste from the major powers. Admiral Tidecaller Mergeth offered Earth exclusive basing rights in exchange for protection and environmental cleanup. The Nexus Confederation has polluted 17 of our spawning grounds, Mergeth reported to Admiral Blake during a secure transmission. They ignore our protests and continue dumping toxic materials in our oceans. That ends now, Blake replied. Any further pollution of reef world oceans will be treated as an act of war against Earth's allies. Meanwhile, the traditional powers struggled to coordinate a response to Earth's ultimatum. The different species had competing interests and ancient rivalries that made unified action difficult. War Prince Thalar wanted immediate military action against human forces. We should strike now before they can consolidate their positions in captured systems. Chairman Veltar of the Ethereal Collective preferred a more subtle approach. Direct military confrontation may not be optimal. Perhaps we can isolate them economically and diplomatically. The Assembly of Minds ran countless simulations, trying to find the best strategy. Current data suggests 67.8% probability of human victory in direct military engagement. Alternative approaches show higher success rates. Senator Flux Ara of the Nexus Confederation had her own concerns. Our industrial capacity depends on raw materials from systems now under human influence. Economic warfare may damage us more than them. The divisions among Earth's enemies became clear during leaked communications that human intelligence intercepted. Director Helen Cross presented the analysis to President Carter and her advisors. The traditional powers cannot agree on how to respond, Cross reported. The dragons want a fight, the ethereals want political maneuvering, and the cybernetics want to avoid conflict entirely. What about their military capabilities if they do unite? Admiral Blake studied the tactical assessments. Combined, they outnumber us roughly 3-1 in major vessels, but they have never coordinated a joint operation on this scale. Their command structures are incompatible. General Parker added his own analysis. More importantly, they are fighting to preserve an old system. We are fighting for the lives of our people. That gives us a significant advantage in motivation. The first test of the forming alliances came when a draconian patrol fleet intercepted human ships near the Centauri jump gate. Commander Lisa Torres led a small convoy of human vessels carrying supplies to the new base at Morrison's Landing. "Human ships, you are ordered to submit to inspection," transmitted the draconian commander. "By authority of the Galactic Security Compact, we have the right to search vessels in this neutral zone." Torres looked at her tactical display. 6 draconian heavy cruisers against her 3 destroyers and 2 supply ships. Under the old rules, she would have submitted to the search and filed a diplomatic protest later. "Draconian fleet, this is Commander Torres of the Terran Navy," she replied. "Human vessels do not submit to searches by hostile powers. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." The draconian commander, expecting the usual human compliance, ordered his ships to close formation for boarding operations. He discovered too late that the new humans were very different from the old peacekeepers. Torres' destroyers opened fire with weapons that cut through draconian shields like they were made of paper. The engagement lasted 4 minutes. When it ended, 2 draconian cruisers were destroyed and the others were fleeing back toward their home system. News of the engagement reached every government in the galaxy within hours. Earth had not only defeated Zephyrian home defenses, they had engaged and destroyed ships from the proudest military force in known space. War Prince Thalar received the news in his throne room, surrounded by his most trusted generals. For the first time in his long life, the Dragon Prince felt something approaching fear. "How many ships did we lose to how many humans?" he asked. "2 heavy cruisers destroyed, 1 damaged against 3 human destroyers," his fleet commander reported reluctantly. "That is impossible. Our ships are the finest in the galaxy. Your Majesty, their weapons technology appears to be several generations ahead of ours. Our shields could not deflect their energy beams." The reality was settling in across the galaxy. Earth had not just built a large fleet in secret. They had developed technology that made existing galactic military forces obsolete. The alliance negotiations accelerated on both sides. The major powers began serious planning for a coordinated assault on human positions, while the smaller species formalized their agreements with Earth. Ambassador Mitchell signed the Terran Protection Accords with representatives from 17 different species in a ceremony broadcast across the galaxy. Each signatory received guarantees of protection from Earth's military forces in exchange for basing rights and intelligence cooperation. "Today marks the beginning of a new era," President Carter announced as she witnessed the signing. "An era where the strong protect the weak rather than prey upon them." The traditional galactic powers watched in growing alarm as Earth's alliance network expanded. Species that had been neutral or submissive for centuries were now openly defying the established order. War Prince Thalar made his final decision during an emergency session of the Draconian War Council. "The humans must be destroyed before they can consolidate their power further. Order full mobilization of all Imperial fleets." Similar orders went out from the Nexus Confederation, Assembly of Minds, and Ethereal Collective. The galaxy's traditional powers were finally uniting against a common threat. The Nexus Prime system had never seen so many warships in one place. Over 800 vessels from the allied galactic powers surrounded the massive space station that housed the Galactic Council. War Prince Thalar commanded the combined fleet. From his flagship, the dreadnought Imperial Wrath, while representatives from 12 different species coordinated the largest military operation in galactic history. "Human forces detected at the system's edge," reported Admiral Kixandra from her crystalline command ship. "Long-range sensors show approximately 200 vessels approaching through hyperspace." War Prince Thalar studied the tactical display with satisfaction. 200 ships against our 800. The humans have finally overreached themselves." What the Allied commanders did not realize was that Admiral Blake had spent months studying their military doctrines and tactical preferences. Earth's intelligence network had provided detailed analysis of how each species fought, what weapons they used, and how they coordinated with allies. The EFS Terra's Wrath dropped out of hyperspace at the head of the human formation. Captain Kevin Brown commanded the massive flagship, while Admiral Blake coordinated the overall battle from his strategic command center. "All ships, this is Admiral Blake," he transmitted to the human fleet. "The enemy expects us to attack their defensive line directly. Instead, we will demonstrate why Earth's military doctrine is superior to anything they have seen." The human ships did not charge toward the enemy formation as expected. Instead, they spread out in a complex pattern that confused the Allied commanders watching from their defensive positions around the Council Station. "What are they doing?" demanded Supreme Coordinator Prime 7 of the Assembly of Minds. This formation makes no tactical sense according to standard military doctrine. The humans are not following standard doctrine, replied General Vorthak of the Ethereal Collective. They appear to be implementing a strategy we do not recognize. War Prince Thalar ordered his fleet to maintain defensive formation around the station. Let them come to us. When they attack our line, we will crush them with concentrated firepower. But Admiral Blake had no intention of attacking fortified positions directly. Earth's military had learned hard lessons from centuries of warfare on their homeworld. Human tactics emphasized mobility, deception, and attacking enemy weaknesses rather than strengths. Phase 1, execute, Blake ordered. 30 human destroyers, led by Captain Linda Torres, activated advanced stealth systems and disappeared from enemy sensors. The Allied fleet suddenly found themselves unable to track nearly a quarter of the human force. Where did they go? Thalar demanded from his bridge crew. Ships cannot simply vanish. Unknown technology, Your Majesty, his science officer reported. Our sensors detect energy signatures, but cannot lock onto specific targets. The invisible human ships struck at the edges of the Allied formation, hitting supply vessels and communication, ships that maintained coordination between the different species. In 15 minutes, the Allied fleet lost its ability to coordinate effectively between different command structures. Communications with the Nexus fleet are intermittent, reported Thalar's fleet coordinator. The assembly ships are not responding to formation orders. Meanwhile, Captain Daniel Clark led a force of fast attack ships in hit-and-run strikes against isolated enemy vessels. His squadron would appear suddenly, destroy their target, and vanish before the enemy could respond effectively. The human fighters, commanded by Major Sarah Kim from the carrier EFS Nemesis, swarmed through the Allied formation like angry insects. Their small size and superior speed made them nearly impossible to target with capital ship weapons designed for fighting other large vessels. Our point defense systems cannot track targets moving that fast, reported Admiral Kixandra as human fighters destroyed 2 of her escort ships. They are exploiting gaps in our defensive coverage. War Prince Thalar watched his carefully planned defensive strategy falling apart. The humans were not fighting like any civilized military force. They struck from unexpected directions, used weapons and tactics that seemed to ignore established rules of engagement, and coordinated their actions with a precision that seemed almost supernatural. Order all ships to close formation, he commanded. We will concentrate our firepower and destroy them ship by ship. But when the Allied fleet tried to tighten their defensive circle, they discovered that Admiral Blake had anticipated this response. The human ships that had been operating independently suddenly coordinated a massive assault on the Council Station itself. Lieutenant Commander Ashley King led the station assault force in a desperate attack that caught the defenders completely off guard. Her Marines launched from assault shuttles directly toward the station's docking bays, while human ships provided covering fire. All Marine units, remember your mission, King transmitted as her shuttle dodged defensive fire. We are here to rescue the moderate council members who opposed this war. Minimum necessary force only. The assault was unlike anything seen in galactic warfare. Instead of trying to destroy the station, the humans fought their way inside to extract specific individuals. King's Marines moved through alien corridors with maps provided by intelligence assets, heading directly for the quarters where friendly council members were being held. Package 1 secured, reported Sergeant Mike. Rodriguez as his team found Ambassador Marek of the Ursine clans locked in what was clearly a prison cell. The moderates have been arrested by their own allies. Package 2 located, added Corporal Janet Lee. High Mediator Corvin is in the medical bay. Looks like they tried to silence him permanently. The discovery that the Allied powers had imprisoned or killed council members who opposed the war changed the nature of the conflict. Admiral Blake broadcast this information across the galaxy, showing that the traditional powers were willing to murder their own representatives to maintain control. Outside the station, the space battle continued with increasing intensity. Captain Peter Hayes in the EFS Retribution engaged 3 Draconian heavy cruisers simultaneously, his ship's advanced weapons cutting through their armor like it was made of paper. Enemy shields are unable to deflect our particle beam arrays, Hayes reported to Admiral Blake, requesting permission to demonstrate human firepower to maximum effect. Permission granted. Show them what Earth's engineers have been building. The Retribution's main weapon systems, hidden for years behind dummy cargo pods, revealed themselves as the most advanced military technology in the galaxy. Energy beams that could crack a moon's surface focused on the lead Draconian ship, vaporizing it in seconds. War Prince Thalar watched his flagship's sister ship disappear in a flash of light and realized that his fleet was facing destruction. All ships, emergency withdrawal to jump points. We cannot win this engagement. But Admiral Blake had positioned human ships at every major hyperspace exit point. The Allied fleet found themselves trapped in a system with no escape routes, facing an enemy that seemed to anticipate their every move. "Admiral, this is Captain Brown," transmitted the Terra's Wrath commander. "Enemy fleet is attempting to surrender. Multiple ships are powering down weapons and requesting safe passage." Blake considered the request while watching the tactical display. Nearly 300 Allied ships had been destroyed or disabled. The survivors were no longer a military threat. Accepted, he decided. All ships that surrender immediately will be allowed to leave the system with their crews. Any ship that continues to fight will be destroyed. The battle ended not with a final climactic engagement, but with the largest military surrender in galactic history. Over 400 ships from the galaxy's proudest military forces submitted to human terms rather than face complete annihilation. Lieutenant Commander King emerged from the council station with 17 rescued council members, including several who had evidence of the war crimes committed by the traditional powers. "Mission accomplished, Admiral," she reported. "The moderate faction has been secured, and we have documented proof of illegal detention and assassination attempts." War Prince Thalar, his fleet in ruins and his alliance shattered, transmitted a personal message to Admiral Blake. "Human Commander, you have won this battle through superior technology and tactics. But conquest of a single system does not make you rulers of the galaxy." "We do not seek to rule the galaxy," Blake replied. "We seek to ensure that no one can murder human peacekeepers without consequences. Today's battle has accomplished that goal." The aftermath of the battle for Galactic Council Station sent shockwaves through every inhabited system. The combined fleets of the galaxy's traditional powers had been defeated by a human force half their size. Earth's technological superiority was now undeniable. More importantly, the rescue of imprisoned council members exposed the lengths to which the old powers would go to maintain their dominance. Species that had remained neutral began openly supporting Earth's position. The galactic order that existed for 1,000 years died today, Chairman Veltar admitted in his final transmission as leader of the ethereal collective. "We underestimated not just human military capabilities, but their commitment to the principles they claim to represent. Admiral Blake established a human garrison on the council station and..." The ceremony concluded with the unveiling of the Morrison Memorial, a simple monument bearing the names of Jake Morrison and all the other humans who had died in service to galactic peace. President Carter read the inscription that would remind future generations of the price of peace. Commander Jake Morrison and his fellow peacekeepers died believing that different species could live together in harmony. Their sacrifice gave birth to a galaxy where that dream is becoming reality. As the delegates filed out of the assembly hall, representatives from species that had never dared to hope for equality now walked as partners with those who had once dominated them. The galaxy had not become perfect, but it had become just. War Prince. Thaler approached President Carter as she prepared to leave the station. The former ruler of the galaxy's most powerful military empire wanted to speak privately with the woman who had ended his reign. President Carter, he said formally, I must ask, what happens when your species becomes corrupted by the power you now wield? How do we know that humans will not become the tyrants you replaced? Carter considered the question seriously. We do not know, she admitted. Power corrupts all species eventually, but we have built safeguards into our system, and we remember the price of Jake Morrison's sacrifice. She gestured toward the memorial visible through the station's windows. As long as we remember why we are here, as long as we honor those who died for peace, perhaps we can remain worthy of the trust others have placed in us. Thaler nodded slowly. For the sake of the galaxy, I hope you are right. The Terran Galactic. Accords went into effect at midnight Galactic Standard Time. Across hundreds of worlds, species that had lived in fear for centuries went to sleep, knowing that human peacekeepers stood guard against those who would harm the innocent. The age of human peace had begun, and in a simple grave on Kepler 442b, Commander Jake Morrison rests. 6 months after the battle for Galactic Council Station, President Lisa Carter stood before the rebuilt assembly hall on what was now called Unity Station. Representatives from over 300 species filled the chamber, but the power dynamics had changed completely from the old Galactic Council days. Today marks the formal establishment of the Terran Galactic Accords, Carter announced to the assembled delegates and the billions watching across the galaxy. These accords represent a new foundation for interspecies relations based on justice, protection of the innocent, and the rule of law. The changes had been swift and dramatic. The old system where powerful species dominated weaker ones through military threats and economic pressure was gone. In its place, Earth had established a new order where human military force guaranteed the rights of all member species. Ambassador Steve Mitchell read the key provisions of the accords to the Assembly. Any species wishing human protection must agree to binding arbitration for interspecies disputes, immediate cessation of aggressive actions against neighboring systems, and unrestricted access for human peacekeeping forces. The former galactic powers sat in the sections reserved for observer status. War Prince Thaler, his military broken and his empire reduced to 12 systems under human monitoring, watched silently as species that had once paid tribute to dragons now spoke as equals. The Draconian Empire accepts observer status in the New Order, he said when called upon. His voice carried none of its former arrogance. We recognize human authority over interspecies conflicts and submit to the jurisdiction of Terran peacekeeping forces. The transformation had not been gentle for the traditional powers. The Nexus Confederation had been broken apart into its component systems after evidence emerged of systematic oppression of client species. The Assembly of Minds found their cybernetic collective restricted to their core worlds, forbidden from expanding into systems inhabited by biological species. Only the ethereal collective had managed to retain some influence by cooperating fully with Earth's demands and providing intelligence about other species' military capabilities. Chairman Veltar has proven that former enemies can become partners in building a better galaxy, President Carter acknowledged. The ethereal collective's cooperation in identifying and dismantling illegal weapons programs has earned them a place in the New Order. But the most dramatic changes had occurred in the former Zephyrian collective. Queen Zexkala sat in a simple chair rather than her former throne, representing what was now called the Zephyrian Republic. Her species had been reduced to a single world under permanent human oversight. The extremists who murdered Commander Jake Morrison have been tried and punished according to human law, she reported when called upon to address the assembly. The New Zephyrian government pledges full cooperation with Terran peacekeeping operations and accepts responsibility for the crimes committed by the former regime. The trial of Morrison's killers had been broadcast across the galaxy. Warclaw Zekmor and his followers had been sentenced to life imprisonment on a human penal colony. The proceedings demonstrated that Earth's justice system was thorough but not cruel, even to those who had murdered their people. Admiral Blake, now serving as Supreme Commander of Terran peacekeeping forces, presented the military arrangements that would enforce the new order. Human naval stations have been established in 47 strategic systems, he reported. These bases ensure that peacekeeping forces can respond to any crisis within 72 hours. The crown jewel of the new human military presence was Morrison Station, built in orbit around Kepler 442b, where the first human peacekeeper had died. The massive facility served as both a memorial and a warning, housing the largest human fleet base outside the solar system. Captain Kevin Brown commanded Morrison Station with a garrison of over 50,000 human military personnel. The base had become a symbol of Earth's commitment to protecting those who could not protect themselves. Morrison Station has processed over 12,000 requests for assistance since becoming operational, Brown reported to the assembly. Our peacekeeping forces have successfully resolved conflicts that would have become full wars under the old system. The smaller species that had allied with Earth found themselves enjoying unprecedented security and prosperity. High Mediator Corvin of the Saurian Union spoke for many of them when he addressed the assembly. For 3 centuries, my people lived under the threat of draconian expansion, he said. We paid tribute, accepted territorial losses, and watched our young leave for other worlds because they saw no future under dragon rule. Now, our children return home to help build new cities and industries. Clan Mother Ursa Kane of the Ursine clans reported similar changes. The traditional powers told us that warfare was natural and that the strong must dominate the weak. Humans have shown us that the strong can protect the weak instead. The economic transformations were as significant as the political ones. Earth's recall of human traders and technicians during the crisis had revealed how dependent the galaxy had become on human expertise. Now that trade and cooperation had resumed under the new order, many worlds were experiencing unprecedented growth. Human industrial techniques have increased our mining efficiency by 300%, reported Admiral Tidecaller Mergeth of the Reef Worlds. More importantly, they have helped us clean up the pollution left by previous galactic powers. Director Helen Cross presented intelligence reports showing the effects of the new order on galactic stability. Interspecies conflicts have decreased by 87% since the establishment of Terran Peacekeeping Authority, she reported. Economic development in protected systems has increased by an average of 45%. But President Carter was careful to address the concerns of those who worried about human dominance becoming as oppressive as the old system. Earth did not seek galactic leadership, she reminded the Assembly. We were forced to reveal our strength. Only when our peacekeepers were murdered and the galaxy showed us that human lives had no value. We use our power to protect others, not to enrich ourselves. The proof was in Earth's actions. Unlike previous galactic powers, humans had not claimed new territories or demanded tribute from protected species. Human bases were built with local permission and paid for with technology transfers and economic development. Human military technology remains classified, admitted General Parker in his address to the Assembly. But our civilian technologies are shared freely with all member species. Education, medicine, and industrial techniques that could improve lives are available to anyone who requests them. The transformation was perhaps most visible in the former Zephyrian territories. Captain Linda Torres commanded the peacekeeping squadron that patrolled the systems where Morrison had died, ensuring that the transition to Republican government proceeded smoothly. Former collective worlds are requesting continued human presence, Torres reported. They fear that extremist groups might attempt to restore the old monarchy without our protection. Lieutenant Commander Ashley King, now serving as commander of Morrison Station's Marine Garrison, oversaw training programs that taught former collective security forces how to protect civilians rather than oppress them. It is remarkable how quickly they learn when they understand that their job is to serve their people rather than their rulers, King observed. Many of these soldiers never knew there was an alternative to the authoritarian system they grew up in.